Well, it is 7 o'clock, so I will go ahead
and it is 7 o'clock, so.
call
I
things.
just make sure we ask them the question.
Yes, yes.
Well, maybe we can have our new board members introduce themselves and eat up some
I'm
time.
going to do that also. All right, so as it is 7 o'clock, Happy New Year, everybody. I'm going to call to order the January 14th, 2021 meeting of the Royal Oak Zoning Board of Appeals.
Oh,
Let me start with a roll call vote, and then I'll have our two new members introduce themselves briefly. I see, I'll go in reverse order. Ms. Robinson?
I'm here.
Mr. Gavin?
Here.
Ms. Zukin?
wait, can I just stop you? You need to say where you're calling from. Just on the first roll call. I'm sorry.
Okay, I'll start over then. Ms. Robinson?
I'm here and I'm calling from Royal Oak.
Mr. Gavin?
I am also calling from Royal Oak, and considering that I have to advise clients of that all the time, you would think I would have remembered that.
Ms. Zukin?
I'm here in Royal Oak.
All right, and I am here also from Royal Oak. Mr. Moore?
Here in Royal Oak.
Ms. George?
I'm here in Royal Oak.
Mr. Ofac?
Here in Royal Oak.
Mr. Clapp?
Here in Royal Oak as well.
And finally, Mr. Curtis.
Here in Royal Oak, good old Royal Oak.
All right, and as we all can see, we do have two new board members who I'd like to have introduce themselves briefly, and I will start with Ms. George.
Hello. I'm Maggie George. I am excited to be on the ZBA. I am currently in my last semester of law school at Wayne. I also spent before that about 13 years in the mortgage industry, training mortgage bankers on the laws, compliance rules, property, things like that. I've also worked for the House of Representatives in DC after graduating from MSU. And so I kind of like property and cities and city planning. And I am excited to be on the board with you guys.
So, well, welcome aboard.
Yeah, happy to have you.
And Mr. Moore.
Welcome.
Hi everyone, I'm Travis. I have lived here in Royal Oak almost 5 years now, coming up on 5 years. And I work in IT, but I also have a real estate background, and I'm very excited to be here.
All right, excellent. Thank you, sir. All right. With that being done, we are looking for the approval of the minutes for the December 10th, 2020 meeting. I have a motion by Ms. Zukin and a second by Mr. Clapp. Any corrections, additions, deletions? Not seeing any. I will go ahead and call for the vote. Mr. Curtis?
Aye.
Mr. Clapp?
Aye.
Mr. Ofac?
Aye.
Ms. George?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
I vote yes. Ms. Zukin?
Yes.
Mr. Gavin?
Yes.
And Ms. Robinson?
Yes.
All right, excellent. And Ms. Sherhart, I don't believe that we have any unfinished business at this point.
Correct. I don't believe we do.
Excellent. So then that moves us right along to our first item of new business, which is item E1, a case that we have seen previously, case number 210101, public hearing on the appeal of Coysville Properties petitioner and owner for the following variances. A, to waive 165 square feet of the, actually, before I read that in, I completely forgot to do the call to order. Let me apologize for that. It's been a while since we did a meeting. The board does not write the zoning ordinance, but does have the authority to grant relief from it where practical difficulty or unnecessary hardship would result. The board will vote on each agenda item following a public hearing. Use variance requests require a minimum of 6 affirmative votes in order to grant the requested variance. Non-use variance requests require a minimum of 5 affirmative votes in order to grant the variances. If you would like to request that the board table or adjourn your case due to the absence of a full board, you must inform the chairperson immediately following after the public hearing. Petitioners shall do their best to limit their presentations to 10 minutes. Each participant in the public hearing shall do their best to limit their comments to 3 minutes. Sorry about that, everybody. And going back to that, case number 210101, public hearing on the appeal of Coysville Properties petitioner and owner for the following variances. A, to waive 165 square feet of the minimum required 6,000 square foot lot area. for the proposed interior lot, parcel B, and B to waive 5.5 feet of the minimum required 60-foot lot width for the proposed corner lot, parcel A, to permit a land division and create 2 vacant single-family home sites located at 4105 Highfield Avenue, Ms. Sherhart.
Okay, let me share my screen. All right, I'll move this over. Okay, so I'll give just a brief history of where we are, and then I will present the facts of the case again, as this is a rehearing, and we do have 2 new board members with us that are joining for their first meeting tonight. So at the September 10th meeting, this request was before the board. We first had the motion to deny that failed, and then we had a motion to approve that also failed. And so they are back before the board tonight, taking advantage of having the full 9 members of the board, as opposed to the September meeting where there was only 8, in order for the request to be reheard fresh. So I will go through the details of the case. So this property is located at the corner of Highfield and Parkway Drive. The petitioners are requesting to divide the property into 2 single-family home sites. Any newly created interior lot in the 1-family residential zoning district must have 6,000 square feet of lot area. In this case, the interior lot, parcel B, is shy of that 6,000 square feet. And so the petitioner is seeking a variance to waive 165 square feet of the minimum required 6,000 square feet for the proposed interior lot, parcel B. As for parcel A, the corner lot, the requirement is that any corner lot needs to have 60 feet in width. In this case, the parcel A measures 54.5 feet. And so the petitioner is seeking a variance to waive 5.5 feet of the minimum required lot width of 60 feet for the proposed corner lot. Prior to accepting this case as a variance request, we did do an analysis of the parcels in the area within 300 square feet, and we weren't able to come to the determination that the proposed lots would be able to be split without variances. We basically take a look and see whether the properties within 300 feet could be the same area, width, or depth as the proposed parcels, and in this case that was not found to be the case. And I think those are the facts of the case. Do you have any questions for me?
All right, any questions for staff at this time? Can you switch screens back so I can see everybody?
Yep.
Thank you. All right, there we go. Any questions for Ms. Sherhart at this point? Mr. Moore.
So my understanding for the corner lot is that the measurement was taken in the middle, correct? Because it's an irregular shape.
We measured the lot width at the minimum required front yard setback line.
Okay.
And so I believe in this case, it was either defaulted to the 25-foot minimum, or actually I think because you have to match the existing home, we actually compared it to the existing home along Highfield. And I believe that front yard setback is 44.4 feet.
Okay, thanks.
All right, any other questions for Ms. Sherhart at this point? I'm not seeing any. I see the petitioner is here. If you would go ahead and tell us about your case. Good evening.
Can you hear us now?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay. So to do some background, we got a couple new members, so we'll get some background. So you may recognize Kelly Luton. She's one of the TV chefs, but we're longtime Royal Oak residences. We've been there for 30 years, and we started business Too Unique catering and event planning, and we grew it to a sizable business in Royal Oak. And pre-pandemic, we had about 150 employees serving, and they, really doing great work. Pandemic, of course, has hit the catering business hard, but even so, post-pandemic, we've kept as many people as we can, and we've donated literally hundreds, possibly thousands of meals to our frontline workers at Beaumont, the fire department, police department, and stuff like that. and we're still looking forward to getting back. You know, what I want to say is that we're not a team that's in and out. We have been longtime Royal Oak people, and we've been planning for this. So in addition to our catering business, we also just like to do housing business. We think that's really important. It's fun and stuff like that. So really over the past 7 years, we've built 4 new homes, and we've remodeled 3 others, right? We're not a mass builder. We just look around for really what we think is really important creative properties, and we try to do really nice things for it. You know, and you know, one of these situations, so we built 4. In one a couple of years ago, we had to do a lot split, so we're familiar. We work with the planning department very well to split the lot, and it came out, you know, very, very well for everybody. So just want to give you some background on who we are, so you can understand our motivation and what we're trying to do. So I think another thing to do is to look at the history of this property. You know, the plot plan that Juliana showed shows that this is really the master plot plan. The property we have was set up to be 2 legal lots. It was always plotted as 2 lots, and so it's always been two plots, 2 lots. And again, as the plot plan showed, the lots in front of it, across the street, and the 2 sides are very much consistent with the way these 2 lots are laid out. So we're not trying to divide and conquer and small and change the character of the neighborhood. We're actually trying to, you know, keep the neighborhood consistent as it was originally planned. The nuance of this is that the original owner purchased both lots, and he put some kind of, you know, a modern house in it, and he did it without combining the lots. So they've always stayed 2 legal lots, and they were never separated. So, and then he put a weird carport on there, and then for some reason, I think for reasonability, right, the tax assessor combined it. He gave 1 tax bill, even though they were 2 legal lots, which made sense because half the house was on one lot and half the house was on the other lot. So it did make sense. But so we have kind of a bit of a screwy situation that goes well back before any of our time, where there were 2 lots, a house spanning 2 lots, 1 tax parcel, and then some unpermitted construction that there were no plans for and stuff like that. So that's kind of the history of, you know, why this is 2 lots and why we're even here, because if they had just built 2 houses on it, it never would have been an issue. But he bought the 2 lots and plopped 1 house in the middle, and then the tax assessor combined the 2. So why would we think this property was interesting is, you know, we're strong Royal Oak supporters, and we were going to build there originally. So we spent a lot of time with the architect, and we've got a lot of kids and stuff like that. And we originally wanted a 4-car garage, and we figured since it was 2 lots and you can have a 2.5-car garage in each house, 4-car garage would be pretty simple. So we worked with the architect, and we went through and did that, and then we went to the you know, to the permitting process or whatever. They said, oh no, you can't have a 4-car garage, you have to go for variance. So we thought, well, again, it would be no brainer with 2 lots. It should be easy because it's well under the garage square footage for the 2 lots. But it turned out that we couldn't, so they asked us to rethink it. And so we went back, and you know, we drew up a conceptual diagram for a 3-car garage, but at the same time, while we were doing that, we had about a month, and we were working with the planning department, and we said, hey, you know, we really want what are our options if we don't do it? Can we just build 2 houses there? Because this 1 house was going to be for ourselves. And they said, yeah, you know, they checked, we met with them multiple times. The planning department went through, and they measured the lots and squared thing. They did the radius on the curves and looked on a side lot. And there were a lot of things they talked about. And we had done a split before, so we'd follow the same process. So when we looked at that, you know, so we went through and we said, what's the process for that? And, you know, they said, well, you got to make the lot split application to the assessor. So we, you know, went to the assessor and filled out the application. They said, oh, you know, you've got to demo the house first on it. So we went back and we checked with the building department, and we pulled all the permits. We got everything done. We you know, did exactly what we were told to do. And, you know, we demoed the house, and we, you know, went through the assessor, and the assessor, you know, took the application and he forwarded to the planning department, and then he calls us up and says, hey, the planning department says you're like 150 square feet short out of a 6,000 foot thing. And I said, well, no, that's not right. We checked with them 3 times before we did any of this. And so, then we went back and we wrote, we talked to the planning department. They go, yeah, well, this is, there's these things that we didn't check before. And I go, well, that's great. We just demoed a house, and now we can't split. So it's what you can do. You just got to go, you have to get a variance for it. So that's really why we're here. As you can see through the plot plan that Juliana showed up, we're not trying to divide an existing, something that was master plotted as 2 different things. We're just trying to kind of keep consistent with what the neighborhood had originally plotted out. I don't know if I've said everything, but my wife here will probably correct me if I, if I didn't say anything.
This is our 3rd time, and I
that was pretty thorough.
I get a little emotional, I get a little I guess.
Any of the board members have questions for you guys at this point? Any questions for the petitioner at this point? Mr. Opak.
Do you have copies of those conversations so that we know that it's not just hearsay of what you felt it was, that this was actually what you were told and whatnot?
No, I don't have copies. And, because honestly, we had split a lot about 1.5 years earlier, and it's the exact same process. We came with the plot plans, I came with the survey, we had this, the assessor dropped the survey, I met with them, and, it's the exact same thing. They don't give written, if I would have known, I would have, recorded it, but we had just done the exact same process about 1.5 years earlier, and it just, went smooth. And so I don't have copies of it. They were, when you go there, you meet with the planning department, they look at it, they, you do sketches and stuff like that. But we came in with a survey, we came in with a thing, they pulled the master plan, they, gave us printouts of it, and they said, yeah, looks no problem.
I think even at once they're like, yeah, no brainer. You know what I mean? And we had done it before. And I guess going forward, if anyone ever tells us anything, we'll ask them to send it to us in an email. And we're not trying to get anybody in trouble or, bark at anything. Apparently there's been some misunderstanding somewhere, but the misunderstanding unfortunately caused us to demo a house and incur a lot of expense with that. And, there was, something that came up last time about like the mosaic of the neighborhood. And, it's interesting. I think what we're proposing would be lovely and be very inclusive of young families that want more open floor plans. It's like we're not trying to build something unusual. We think it'd be like a super great fit for 2 super great families that want to live on Highfield in that super great neighborhood. You know what I mean? So I think it's a win-win.
Any other questions for the petitioner at this point?
I have some questions.
Yes, absolutely.
So the plan, if the variance is granted, is to still build 2 separate homes. Is that correct?
Yes.
And what's the square footage of those homes?
They're targeting around 2,400.
Okay.
We're not trying to Bigfoot anything or like that. We're just.
Gotcha. I think that's, are you saying you were going to move into one of them or?
No, we were originally looking for, we have a lot of kids and we have electric cars and stuff like that, so we need charging. So our original plan was to build something with a 4-car garage so we could get 4 charging stations in there. And then when that didn't work, this is plan B. So.
Okay, that's it.
Mr. Opak, I think I saw your hand again.
Are you going to have to come well, actually, I probably already know the answer to this because of looking at the size of it. You're probably going to have to come back before us to get variations on that corner lot unless you really do some interesting design to it. Is that true? Because that's going to be pretty thin with the amount of setback that you need there along both sides.
Yeah, so I think the corner lots and the fact that it's a trapezoid, and it's got a radius in it presents some interesting things. So I think that's where what we want to do is work with the planning department. And certainly, when we had sketched it out with so we just did rough sketches with the architect. And we said, what we don't want to do is have a footprint, anything that would exceed the neighbor, anything like that, but go before or behind it or something like that. So until we work it all out, I don't know. I suspect there'll be something, but we looked at the architect and he said, yeah, we should. He gave us rough sketches that these should be pretty good in there. But the devil's in the details, as we have learned. So.
All right, I think I saw Mr. Moore next.
Sorry, I guess I was muted there. I see we have a letter of support from the neighbor at 4033. That looks to be the person across the street on the corner. Have you spoke to the neighbor at 4115 about your plan?
I personally can't recall all the addresses. I can just tell you like people's faces and cars.
Okay.
We walked in before we built. We have a really good relationship with the neighbor behind us. He's all for us. From how I understand it, everybody that lives on our street thought it was a pretty cool idea.
We've actually made some great friends.
We know, really, yeah.
We're just out boating, and then it's like Sinclair and stuff. So I think we've been pretty
friendly.
Yeah.
Yeah, the one I was asking about was the one immediately next door.
No, I've knocked twice or three times on their door. They've never answered. But they are a colonial, not a ranch. So what we're building is a colonial, which would be very complementary to it.
Okay, thanks.
All right, any other questions? And
So
Ms. Schwanger, did anybody call in on this matter?
Yes, we have 3 public comments on this. Let me, I'm going to share my screen and share the, come on, there we go.
Hi, this is Jennifer Rossback, 4149 Sheffield Road. I'm calling on case number 210101, and I'm voicing dissent for this case to go forward. I would hope that the zoning board, again, would not entertain the splitting of this lot. As a city, we're worried about runoff and other items that are causing, other climate change issues. Just adding more houses to my neighborhood isn't going to solve this issue. This property's owner has come before the board twice before and was denied. Please do that again tonight. Thank you.
Hi, yes, I'm calling regarding specific to the case number 21-01-01 regarding 4105 Highfield. My name is Ted Page. I live at 4314 Amherst. I represent the Neighborhood Association as its president. And we are dead set against having our lots turned into tiny lots with large homes on them and not having big footprint houses. So I am calling to request you deny the variance and stop these predatory developers from changing the look and feel of our sub and the very essence of why we invested here. Thank you.
Good afternoon. This is Matt, and I'm calling in reference to case number 210101 for the residents at 4105 Highfield. And I wanted to object to the request for a variance of the property. Good afternoon, this is Matt, and I'm calling.
It concludes the public comment for this evening.
For the entire evening?
Yes, for the entire evening.
Oh, okay, excellent.
And
Thank
we
you.
were all on that case.
All right, excellent. Thank you.
I would like to.
I'm sorry, sir?
Oh, so just a comment, especially on the first. So, I mean, there is one neighbor down the street who had, rallied a lot of call-ins before, right? And they were all very similar in that. I did also want to comment is that, we're not splitting the lot. These are 2 plotted lots, right? So that's what I think the thing is we're not destroying the context of the neighborhood. it was put with 2 water mains in, it was put with sufficient drainage. And actually the 2400s, the two 2400s would not be any more like what they call it, non-pervious surfaces than what was already agreed on when we were going to build a big ranch there. So, I know there's a couple that people who kind of rally support around it and are kind of anti-change, but I think what we're trying to do is, really move with the consistency of the original plot plan there and the original engineering for both runoff and sewage.
Well, are there any other questions for the petitioners at this point before I bring it back to this side of the table? Ms. Zukin.
I've forgotten from the last 2 times we heard this case, how long has it been a single family house?
It was I believe, and I don't know the exact date, from the original plot plan, right? When it was originally designed, it was plotted as 2 lots, and the person bought 2 lots there, or two lots, and put the big ranch in the middle of it, and then added another big carport, and then added a substantial amount of cement and patio. So there was actually like almost 0 green space there at all. And most of this was done after the original construction without permits.
So it was always single family, 1 house?
It was always, 1 house spanning 2 lots.
All right, any other questions? All right, not seeing any, I will bring it back to this side of the table. And is anybody prepared to take action? Mr. Ofak.
I move to deny the variances as requested.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
All right, we have a second by Ms. Zukin. Mr. Ofak.
Going by non-use variances to prove hardship, the owner could have used this and can use this for 1 single house as it was there before they pulled it down. The variance will do substantial justice to the applicant as well as the property owners in the district. As we can hear from the comments, majority of the people in the area think it won't do substantial justice and instead will do harm to the neighborhood. Plight of the landowner is due to the unique circumstance of the property. Yes and no. Yes, there were 2 land plots there, but they put 1 house on there and then got combined into 1 tax thing. We've got this many times come before us. And the alleged hardship has not been created by any person interested in the property. Partial there, because if what they say is true as to there was not enough due diligence by the planning department to help them come through this, okay, I can sort of see they jumped the gun, but still it's sort of partial in that. Then the additional criteria, the width, size, and general character of the lots in the neighborhood area, it wouldn't be before us for the splitting if it was able to be done that way. Partially, it would only be before us for the amount of square footage it's under. You can see, there's a lot of big lots on those streets. Across from them, no, yes, they're smaller, but in that general area, there are larger lots. The width and shape of the lot leaves adequate buildable area to construction dwelling, which is harmony and character with the neighborhood. For 1 lot, yes. The other one, it's going to create something really interesting there with the setbacks, unless they get variances from us. The extent to which other developed lots in the neighborhood and or area have maintained required yards, lets, and width. Again, they're before us in order to get this. So because of all that, I have to say to deny the request.
All right, thank you. Ms. Zukin, anything you want to follow up with?
I apologize if I just interrupt for a second. You said hardship. I assume you meant practical difficulty.
That's what I meant. Sorry, thank you.
Sorry, just wanted to make sure.
Ms. Zukin, anything you want to follow up with?
I would just add, I think all the 4 factors were covered well, and they're all supposed to be met for there to be a lot split. As to factor B or factor A, preventing the owner from using it for permitted use, I know they were before us twice before, and we did grant a zoning variance for them to build the house, the single family house, build it out with a different size garage. And they had discussed it with all their neighbors, and the neighbors who originally objected all came around. And I recall the last time we had the split issue before us, there were a lot more calls opposed to it. And since that wipes out two of the factors entirely, I just couldn't support this.
Any other comments from anybody else on the board? Ms. Robinson.
I went back to, I think it was the August meeting, and I went and listened to all those comments that were called in and the written things that we had. I believe there were 5 of those, and we had like about 10 emails that we were listening to. And so much of the neighborhood is against that. I'm going to have to follow.
Mr. Gavin, did I see your hand next?
Yeah. I'm actually not going to be in support of this motion. I do understand some of the concerns, and it is kind of, there were a lot of calls against it, but there were a number of calls for it. And then in addition to that, in terms of the character of the neighborhood, when I went there and took a look at it, the 4 corners of that area, 2 of them are almost similar in like it's 2 small lots or 2 smaller lots that, weren't combined as these were. So, this, it would fit the character of that corner because there are some relatively small lots, both across the street from Highfield. So you got 4102 and 4106, and then kitty corner to it as well. It would be a very similar structure to that. I will say that I am quite concerned about the need for variances on that corner lot if it is split. And I would be quite disinclined to vote in favor of any unless it was really, truly needed, because it would have been a situation created by the present owners of the property because they did the lot split. So that is one concern I have. But in addition to that, the other concern that has come to my mind is we are already taking a look at corner lots in our zoning ordinance. This is something we discussed recently in terms of setbacks. And then on top of that, the right-of-ways in this area are huge. I know it will present problems from the perspective of actually dealing with the setbacks and all that, but it still will be quite a lot of green space there in between the sidewalks and the streets. So those are the reasons that I'm leaning to be in favor of granting this motion, and therefore will not be supporting this one.
Anybody else? Mr. Moore.
I also won't be able to support the motion. A lot of the people that we've heard from are not even on this street. Even tonight, we didn't have an address from a couple of them, and one is, it looks like the next street over. And when I look at this neighborhood, I see a lot of different lots. There's all kinds of irregularity on that little island by Parkway, Highfield, and Amherst. And then when you look directly across the street, and I think Mr. Gavin mentioned this, directly across the street at 4106 and 4102 are both very narrow lots on a corner, would not be much different than what the petitioner's asking for here. And so I think that this looks like a decent plan, but I also would have to echo that I would like to see them come up with plans that are not going to require any further variances.
Excellent, thank you. Well, let me chime in here. I will not be in favor of the motion to deny either for a couple of reasons. A, they are just going back to the original plot. I think I mentioned last time, I could walk over there, look at it again, and be back in this meeting in about 45 seconds. So I'm very familiar with this particular lot. What they are proposing, I think, is reasonable. Quite frankly, living in that neighborhood, and I see that the neighborhood association president called in and spoke out against it. Interestingly, I haven't seen a single email or a single phone call asking for wide-ranging neighborhood input. It seems like a few selective phone calls may have been made trying to drum up support against this. And more importantly, the concerns raised by a couple of my fellow board members in terms of the setbacks that are going to be required on the corner lot when they do a build out. The reality is we are looking at it exactly like Mr. Gavin said, because something like 90% of the homes in the city of Royal Oak that sit on corner lots don't even meet our own ordinances. And with those being updated in the near future, I think we're holding these folks to an unreasonable standard. I think what they're asking for is completely reasonable. I think it will be harmonious with the neighborhood, and I think it will be a win for all parties concerned. So for that reason, I cannot support the motion to deny. Would anybody else like to chime in? Mr. Klatt.
Yeah, I'm not in support as well, for the same reasons I mentioned back in September. In the broader context, I think the lot split would be comparable to the lots in the neighborhood, as was mentioned by fellow board members, so I will not be in support.
Anybody else?
I'm not in support of the motion to deny, but I have no original reasons other than what's already been mentioned.
All right. Not seeing any other hands, I will go ahead and call for the vote. Again, this is a motion to deny. I will start with Mr. Curtis.
No.
Mr. Klatt.
No.
Mr. Opak.
Aye.
Ms. George.
No.
Mr. Moore.
No.
I vote no. Ms. Zukin.
Aye.
Mr. Gavin.
No.
And Ms. Robinson.
Aye.
All right. So the motion to deny fails 6-3. Am I doing my math right?
Mhm.
All right. So that being the case, we can't move forward with a motion to deny. Is somebody prepared to introduce a motion in the alternative? I saw Mr. Moore first, so we have a motion by Mr. Moore, and I saw Mr. Gavin as the second. Anything else that you would like to add to your previous comments, Mr. Moore?
No.
All right, Mr. Gavin?
Nope.
All right, then let's do this again. I'll start in reverse order. Ms. Robinson?
No.
Mr. Gavin?
Aye.
Ms. Zukin?
No.
I vote yes. Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Ms. George?
Yes.
Mr. Opak?
Nope.
Mr. Klatt?
Yes.
And Mr. Curtis?
Yes.
All right, so the motion passes 6-3, folks. You are all set.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Have a great evening.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right. All right, so that moves us right along to our second item of new business, which is item E2, case number 210102, public hearing on the appeal of Griffin Singh LLC, petitioner and owner for the following variance, single one, A, to waive 9 of the minimum required 546 off-street parking spaces to permit a ground floor restaurant in a mixed-use building located at 25,000 Woodward Avenue. Ms. Sherhart. Oh, I'm sorry. Ms. Sherhart, can we go back to the share screen before you make your comments?
Yep.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to point out that I already discussed this with Mr. Kaluzny, but my company is currently working with Singh Development on another project, but I have zero affiliation with this overall development or the tenant fit out that's being proposed. So unless the board has any objections, I plan to hear this case.
All right, are there any objections from any of my fellow board members? All right, not seeing any, I think we're good to go. And then back to Ms. Sherhart, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Go back to sharing my screen. Okay, so the case before you tonight is a request to waive 9 of the minimum required 546 off-street parking spaces to permit a ground floor restaurant in a mixed-use building. So this is the Griffin site that was approved by the Planning Commission in 2017. It's currently under construction, and when they were approved initially, the site called for 448 parking spaces in the parking structure and 89 surface parking spaces for a total of 537 off-street parking spaces. The breakdown of the parking need was 2 parking spaces per dwelling unit, at 245 dwelling units. That was 490 parking spaces. And then there were 5 ground floor retail sites. All of them were allotted to have 1 parking space per 300 square feet of usable floor area. And that came out to a need of 33 off-street parking spaces for the retail. As the structure and the surface spaces were built, there was actually an excess of 14 off-street parking spaces. However, the petitioner did submit building permits to establish a restaurant use in one of the previously approved ground floor tenant spaces. Restaurants are a more intensive use and therefore they do require more parking. 1 space per 65 square feet of usable floor area versus 1 space per 300 square feet. Because of this change, the proposed restaurant would result in a deficiency of 9 off-street parking spaces. So the request before you today is a variance to waive 9 of the minimum required 546 off-street parking spaces to establish a restaurant in one of those ground floor tenant spaces. And I know that we had questions on the bedroom breakdown of the site, and I believe that was included in a letter from the petitioner that was added to your packet, I think early this week. But if anyone wants me to go over that, I'm happy to, as well as answer any other questions that you might have. So I'll stop my screen share so you can see the board.
Excellent. Any questions for our staff at this point? Mr. Moore.
I have a question on the parking analysis. I looked at the letter from Mr. Cowan here, and it mentioned Tiffany Lane is now privately owned by this developer, and it looks like those spaces are already included in that 89 off-street parking calculation. Is that correct?
I believe that's true, although I could defer to the petitioner to double check.
Okay, and it looked like in the past that on Google Street View anyways, that was used probably by the other condos that were there. So is that no longer going to be utilized by all of the people that are living in the adjacent condos that are next to that? Now will that be closed off? I guess that might be another question for the petitioner as well.
Yeah, I might let the petitioner speak to that because I
Okay.
am not actually sure about how use will be controlled on that street.
Thanks.
Well, before we get to the petitioner, are there any other questions for Ms. Sherhart at this point? All right, not seeing any. I will go ahead and turn it over to the petitioner.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
I am Dennis Cowan with the law firm Plunkett Cooney representing Singh Development. With me this evening is Todd Rankin, who is the Director of Architecture and Planning and has been very involved in this project since its inception. First of all, Mr. Chairman, I did submit the letter that Juliana referred to, and we would like to make that part of the record of this evening's proceedings. Also, I wanted to mention to the board that I did cover the 4 specific criteria that you need to determine. We believe we meet or exceed that. I will weave those discussions into the presentation, but not discuss it specifically. If you want to discuss that, those technical aspects, we'll certainly want to do that. But first, on behalf of Singh, we want to wish all of you a happy new year and also welcome the 2 new board members and wish them well in their service to our community. I am very pleased to be here tonight. This is the end of a 30-year journey that the city has been involved in, and I have been involved in this in both the public and private sectors since this property had been used as the construction staging area for the 696 Expressway. Subsequently, after the city purchased it and the expressway opened in 1969, it went through a whole series of development agreements and developers, all of which failed. And finally, about 3.5 years ago, Singh Development expressed an interest, went to the DDA, negotiated the sale, and then went through the Planning Commission in order to get its approval, and has subsequently, as you know, started construction on a very beautiful project at a real key corner of our community and a gateway. Included in the development is 8,600 usable square feet of retail space. When that was first calculated 3.5 years ago, it really was intended to be service retail, and not much thought was given to any other uses. However, with the change in our economy and leasing, we have an excellent opportunity to open a coffee shop. It's really not a restaurant, it's a coffee shop, although I know it has to be designated as a restaurant. It will be operated by the folks who operate Birmingham Roast just off of Woodward and south of Maple. They're very experienced. I gave some details in my letter and we can talk more about them. They're an excellent operator. I think everyone will agree this is an outstanding use for the site, something that will benefit the residents, something that quite frankly, not only the residents of the Griffin, but also of the neighboring condos. So as a result, when you stop to think about it, in addition to some of the numbers I'll talk about in a second, having this in a very walkable space will actually reduce driving in the area because people will walk to this site as opposed to driving to it, because driving just is a little too much congested in the general area. We have a very unique property. It's bordered by the Expressway, Woodward, and Washington, which are 3 major thoroughfares into Royal Oak. So if you go by the numbers, as Juliana mentioned, we're asking for a 9-space variance, which is about 1.6% of the overall parking of 537 spaces. There are 448 spaces in the deck. We have 245 units, but 131 of those are 1-bedroom or studio units. Typically, in the experience of Sing and my experience in multifamily, those generally almost always take up 1 space. So we're starting from a viewpoint of about a reduction of actual need, not technical ordinance need, but actual need of probably 131 reduction, somewhere in that neighborhood. So we believe that the development is well overparked and we'll be able to have all of the residents of the multifamily units and their visitors utilize the parking in the deck. That then leaves 89 spaces on the street, so to speak, 61 which are very close to the western side where the retail is. And the staff report does say that even with the coffee shop, there would be a need for 56 spaces. So again, we'll believe we're overparked significantly and have more than adequate parking. I do want to note in just a short response to Mr. Moore's question, first of all, Tiffany Lane has actually always been a private road. It was included, though, it was built because it had to be when the condominiums were built, but it was part of the sale. It will be, for lack of a better word, it will be a public road. I mean, all the public's going to be able to use it. There's going to be no gates there. We fully anticipate that our neighbors to the north will have some visitors from time to time who will use those spaces. We don't have an objection to that. There's not going to be any posting of signs. We don't anticipate we'll ever have to do that to prohibit any parking by members of the condominium. We've had a very good relationship with them. Todd has indicated there's been several things that have happened with different construction issues, both for the condominiums, maintenance issues, and with the site, and they've been able to work all those things out. So at this time, I want, as we have this integration of the site and of the retail, Todd's been very intimately involved in this, and I want to pass the baton over to him for a few minutes to give his perspective and information to you.
Thank you, Mr. Collin. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. Yes, my name is Todd Rankin, and as Dennis said, I have been on this project since the very beginning, and so we have been working on this for a number of years, and we're glad to be at the position we are now. So I appreciate you taking the time to hear our petition and our request. To piggyback on what Dennis said, the Tiffany Lane, we are intending to leave that, as he said, quasi-public. We're not going to sign it. We're not going to say Griffin parking only, others will be towed. We have no intention of doing that. But we are also believers in shared parking. And in this particular instance, a coffee shop with business hours of 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., we think that the traffic for this coffee shop will be gone by the time there's any need for guest parking along Tiffany. So we don't see that as being an issue at all either. As Dennis said, also, the parking in the structure we feel is more than adequate for our residential apartments. Remaining surface lots will be used for the retail component. I'm very excited to bring you the opportunity to have Birmingham roast. And I think maybe some of you know they are actually going to be calling this Royal Oak roast. So that is exciting. And we've been working with them pretty diligently on getting them a walk-up window. They are very much tuned into COVID and the future as things progress beyond COVID to have a walk-up window. They recognize this location is very walkable. There's a bike lane that's just been added. We developed that westerly park. We rerouted the northern slipstream of the northbound lane for Washington. We developed that park for just the community. There's built-in benches, concrete wall benches, seating opportunities, and we're really hoping that there's a lot of pedestrian movement from the zoo, from the north, and then from the west or the easterly communities. We're going to be putting in bike racks as we close out the project. And what Royal Oak Roast is planning to do is to also offer a delivery service. They plan on delivering to anybody within our residential building, as to also some of the somewhat local residences around us. They can't go too far at this point. So those are all reasons why we also think that the parking requirement space per 65 is not necessarily needed at this location. But if that's what we're classified as, that's why we're going for this reduction that we're here for tonight.
All right, excellent, thank you. Any questions from the board for Mr. Olfak?
Two questions. One, how many bedrooms are in the penthouse units?
I'd have to real quickly. We really don't. We have a top floor. It's not. We don't really call it a penthouse.
Okay, it was just in Mr. letter saying 19 penthouse units, and I was just wondering what bedrooms are in those units.
Those. I think maybe he was referring to. We have 19 3-bedrooms. There.
Okay.
Studio units, 1-bedrooms that equal 100.
Are you going to be assigning parking spots per units? In which case, what is that allocation? For example, 1 spot for each studio, 1 bedroom, 2 for 2, and maybe either 2 or 3 for the 3-bedroom, I guess.
Yes, it's typical that we will assign our leases that they get 1 parking space per bedroom. And then if they second car, that's an additional rate that they would pay in their lease.
Okay, so the total leased out spaces will be, let's see, 245 plus 95 plus another 40. So that's
378, I believe.
Yeah. Okay. So well below the 490 that's required by the thing for units, and the rest of it would just be for guests and whatnot.
Correct.
Thank you.
Who did I see next? Was that Mr. Gavin? Yes, sir.
Sorry. And I may have misheard this or not heard it at all. Do the other commercial spaces have tenants yet, or are those still pending?
They're still pending. We have a couple that we're negotiating with, so we're getting closer, but nothing signed right now.
Are any of them restaurant uses?
Not at this time, no.
Any other questions? All right, not seeing any, I will go ahead and close this down, bring it back to this side of the table. Is anybody prepared to take action? Mr. Curtis.
Yeah, I'd move to grant the variance as requested.
And we have a motion by Mr. Curtis and a second from Mr. Olfak. Any follow-up comments, Mr. Curtis?
Well, I think the case is well presented, but I'll just reiterate that the parking is more than adequate. I think the concern would be if the parking was a little sparse for the tenants, that it would really jam up the neighborhood. But it's just the opposite. The parking is really generous for the tenants, and I don't think we'll see overflow into the neighborhood. Everybody would prefer to park indoors in Michigan anyway. And so as this is a restaurant, sure, but it's a coffee shop that is going to have a lot of walkable traffic. I mean, you guys know how many people will be living when that, place is tenanted, and all those townhomes all around there. This is going to be an extremely walkable district. I think it's going to be a great setup. However, I will reiterate, I really think Royal Oak Roast is a better name than Birmingham Roast.
That was my mistake. I forgot to mention.
Mr. Opak, anything you want to follow up with?
Yeah, I believe looking through the variances, the non-use variances, I think unfortunately for them, the hardship is Royal Oak's got a code for parking that lumps coffee shops in with restaurants, and when it's clearly not a restaurant. They've got 40 seats there, so that means worst case scenario, if someone's crazy enough to want to drive through and traffic to get into that area instead of just walking down, they only have spots for 40 people. So if you're not one of those 40 people, you're just going to keep on going. So I think the hardship they have is just it's arranged with the coffee shop, as well as looking at the fact of where this is located. I agree the majority of the people will be just walking on down from their apartments or right around the neighborhood for this. So because of that, I don't think there's going to be this need for the parking that's required by the city.
Excellent. Anybody else with any other comments? Mr. Gavin.
Yeah, I'm also in favor of this. I think parking was something I raised at our joint meeting with the planning commission, and I know this isn't technically in the downtown district, but that whole area is slated for mixed use development, and this is right up that alley, and understanding that people will be walking around there a lot more is part of that. So I'm definitely in favor of this.
Excellent, thank you. Anyone else? Ms. Zukin.
We've had several other multifamily units where we've decided that 2 spaces for each unit, especially where they're studios or 1 bedrooms, is more than enough. And this property owner has a lot more parking than most of those do. And just as an aside, I was involved with this property when we originally condemned it from Matthews Hargrave. So I'm really happy to see somebody in there.
That reveals a lot about us, how old we are.
All right, well, not seeing any of the hands, I will go ahead and do the roll call vote. Mr. Curtis?
Yes.
Mr. Clapp?
Yes.
Oh, sorry, lost my earpiece. Mr. Opak?
Aye.
Ms. George?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
I vote yes. Ms. Zukin?
Yes.
Mr. Gavin?
Yes.
And finally, Ms. Robinson.
Yes.
All right, that passes unanimously. Gentlemen, you're all set. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, we want to thank you and just let the board know we're expecting a spring or early summer total completion and people start to move in. So the construction will be ended and a lot of residents will be moving in.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Long overdue.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, so moving right along, we are at case number E3, which is case number 210103, public hearing on the appeal of ZA Design Build petitioner and Trailhead RO LLC owner for the following variances. A, to waive 1,000 of the minimum required 1,000 foot distance from a school, library, park, playground, licensed daycare, or religious institution. And B, to waive 80 foot of the minimum required 150 foot distance from a residential zone to permit a personal service spa with ancillary massage, body art, microblading, tattoo services, which are defined as an adult-oriented business to be located at 486 North Main Street. Mr. Klatt again.
I guess I'm on a roll here this evening, but yeah, Mr. Chair, I spoke with Mr. Kluzny again about this project. Our company designed the overall trailhead building, but again, I have no affiliation with any tenant fit out or this fit out as well. So again, unless the board has an objection, I'll plan to hear this case as well too.
Does any board member have an issue? All right, not seeing any. I will move it right along to Mr. Hart.
All right. All right, so this request is for one of the two properties within the, and I apologize. Is my sound still okay?
Yeah, we can hear you fine.
Yes.
Okay, just I'm at the office and there's some vacuuming happening, so just let me know if it's egregious. Sorry about that. Where was I? Okay, so yes, this property is located on North Main Street, and it is the northernmost property in the two property development icon on Main. So the petitioner is proposing to occupy the ground floor commercial space of the building that also has residential. The building to the south is the hotel building that has obviously the hotel, restaurant, meeting room, and office space. So this case went before the Planning Commission in December for special land use approval for, sorry about that, for special land use approval. This site was, sorry about that. So this site was developed as a special redevelopment, which allowed for the uses of the general business zone district. An adult-oriented business is considered a special land use within the general business zone district. And so in December, the petitioner went before the board to seek that special land use approval. So the uses proposed that are considered to be adult-oriented businesses in this case are first, massage that is outside of the direct purview of a licensed doctor, as well as microblading, which is technically considered to be tattooing. So those two uses are proposed, and given the Planning Commission granted the special land use approval, the next step is for them to seek variances for the distance buffers that we do require between these adult-oriented businesses and certain special uses in the district. So there is a 1,000-foot buffer between all adult-oriented businesses and schools, libraries, parks, playgrounds, licensed childcare centers, or religious institutions. The following are located within 1,000 feet of the property: Royal Oak Middle School, the library, a couple of parks, Royal Oak Church, and Genesis the church, as well as a licensed daycare center. So the first variance is one to waive 1,000 feet of that minimum required 1,000 feet distance from a school, library, park, playground, licensed childcare center, or religious institution. Additionally, adult-oriented businesses have a 150-foot buffer requirement from residential. This site is located 70 feet from the nearest residential zone district. Therefore, the petitioner is seeking a variance to waive 80 feet of the minimum required 150 feet distance from a residential zone. So I think those are the details. Let me stop sharing my screen and let me know if you have any questions.
All right, any questions for Mr. Hart at this point? Mr. Elfak?
Just one, although I'm pretty sure I know the answer, but I just want to confirm.
Mm-hmm.
If we grant this variances as requested, it's only for this use, and if, say, they change from a salon to all tattoo or all massage, they'd have to come back before us again.
Correct. It's for the specific adult-oriented uses that are requested. So it couldn't come back and be a pawnbroker or any other adult-oriented use.
Yep. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, not seeing any from the board. The petitioners are present. Who wants to go first?
Oh, I think you're muted.
You're both muted, gentlemen.
Zay, do you want to go or do you want me to go? I guess it's me.
Yes. Go ahead, sir.
You guys hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so basically, our facilities are comprised, we have 549 locations in 44 states at this point. I think Royal Oak will be number 16 in the state of Michigan. And we are basically executive suites for cosmetologists. And within our facilities, we do like to have accessories, let's say ancillary uses that will be in our facilities with our hairdressers, basically. So we have 18,000 studio operators and about 84% are hairstylists across the nation. So we do like to have a comprehensive service offering at each one of our locations so that it's more or less a one-stop shop for personal services. So some of the things that we have seen in our Birmingham location, Rochester Hills, West Bloomfield, Novi, is microblading, massage therapy, and sometimes med spa services. So that's basically why we're requesting the variance for this location. We have 6 studios dedicated for spa uses out of the 37 studios that are in the facility.
All right, is that everything?
That's all I've got. Zay, do you have anything to add?
You're muted, sir. Mr. Schwager, can you unmute him?
Can you hear me
there
now?
we go.
Okay. Good evening. I'm Zaid. I'm the designer and the builder from ZA Design Build and part owner of this project. And I just want to add to what Scott said. Basically, yeah, I mean, most of our suites are basically hairstylists, but we do want to have the opportunity to be able to entertain microblading and massage and tattoo, which are a very small portion of our use, to be honest with you. That's been our experience. And these are all these people that come into our space are licensed, unlike the past where a massage parlor or a tattoo artist didn't have to be licensed. But nowadays in the state of Michigan, everyone's licensed. We monitor that. We make sure everyone's licensed and professional. Like Scott said, there's about 550 or 549 locations for solar salons. So it's a very professional operation, and that's why we're requesting, so we can just have an open door for these kind of businesses.
Great, excellent, thank you. Any questions, Mr. Curtis?
Yeah, welcome, gentlemen. Just real quick, how many spaces do you plan on having in there? Did you say 37?
37, correct.
Oh, that's a lot. Good. And I happen to be on this board a couple of years, and I've heard microblading talked about. Now, maybe our 2 new members know all about it, but it was new to me when I heard it talked about. Would you just take even just 1 minute and explain it?
Yeah, so basically it's semi-permanent makeup for eyebrows. So women don't have to every day apply makeup to their eyebrows.
Yeah, and because it's that, as I understand, it falls under this business about tattoo, right?
It is. So it's regulated by Oakland County Health Department. So it's not regulated by LAURA, the state cosmetology board. And that's why it falls under the tattooing category. So again, like Zaid said, we make sure that everybody's licensed. They'll be required to get a business license from Royal Oak. Everybody's an independent business owner within the space. So we make sure that they've got all their licensing in order before they're able to open and operate for business.
And do you expect there would be any, what I think of as more traditional tattoo artists involved in the space?
It's rare. It's very rare. Tattoo artists like to be in a different type of facility. We offer a very high-end product. Tattoo artists kind of like to be together in their own facility. They don't want to be intermingled with hairstylists and estheticians and cosmetologists in general. They want to be in more of a tattoo parlor setting. But again, I don't really know how, I mean, you could, I guess, parcel off microblading if that's an option, because we don't really cater to a normal, I don't know if you call it normal, but a run of the mill tattoo artist that does ink on, other parts of the body.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions for the petitioners at this point? Ms. Zukin?
You say that there are actual number of spots that are reserved for massage and tattoo?
Yeah, so at the Royal Oak facility, we have 6 dedicated spa studios out of 37, which is 16% of the facility. And we do that based on what we've seen over the other 549 locations that we have. We basically are running at 83% hairstylists. So we set up our new facilities, based on those numbers that we've seen over the past 15 years.
So technically you could have all 6 of those spaces be tattoo artists if you decided to do that, if we granted the variance.
Technically, I guess we could. That wouldn't be what we would want to do at Sola Salons. I would say we maybe have 10 out of 18,000 studios occupied by a tattoo artist nationwide. If I had to guess, it might even be less than that, to be honest with you. It's just not the environment for a tattoo artist.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? All right, well, not seeing any. Thank you, gentlemen, very much. And I'm going to go ahead and bring it back to this side of the table. Is anybody prepared to take action? I saw Mr. Opak first.
I move to grant the variances as requested.
All right, and I think I saw Mr. Gavin as the second. Mr. Opak, the floor is yours.
The hardships that I see is unfortunately the way the zoning ordinances and use variances that they need to apply for related to this are related to a total different thought process of what can occur. And this, as you can see, is a very professional service, very similar to what's there at 4th Street and Washington that's came before us before and asked. So I feel this is going to be a real professional setup. It's just going to deal with what they say. Hair, there might be some microblading, there might be some massage therapy that goes on, but everyone's licensed and everyone's on the up and up. It's not like the old days it used to be. So because of that, I don't have any issues with granting the variances as requested.
Excellent, thank you. Mr. Gavin.
No, I think Anthony summarized the practical difficulties here quite nicely. So I don't really have anything to add.
Excellent. Anybody else? All right, not seeing any other hands, I will go ahead and do the roll call vote. Ms. Robinson?
I'm for it.
Mr.
Yeah.
Gavin?
Yes.
Ms. Zukin?
I
vote yes. Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Ms. George?
Yes.
Mr. Opak?
Aye.
Mr. Clapp?
Yes.
And Mr. Curtis?
Yes.
All right, that motion passes unanimously. You're all set, gentlemen. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your consideration. Excited to do business in Royal Oak. Thanks, guys.
Appreciate it. All right, that moves us along to our final item of new business, which is E4, case number 210104, public hearing on the appeal Douglas Gardner, petitioner, and Sharon McAvoy, owner, for the following variances. A, to alter or expanding non-conforming structure. B, to waive 0.03 feet of the minimum required east side yard setback of 4 feet to permit construction of a second-story addition on an existing non-conforming single-family dwelling located at 2100 Harwood Avenue. Ms. Sherhart.
All right. Share my screen. Okay, so the request before you relates to a non-conforming single-family home that's located on the south side of Harwood, sort of in the north of 696, west of 75 area of Royal Oak. The property is improved with a single-family home and detached garage. The original 1.5-story home maintains a non-conforming 3.7 foot side yard setback on their east side. Based on the lot width of 40 feet, the requirement for the east side yard setback in this case would be 4 feet. The petitioner proposes to construct a full second-story addition, which is in line with the existing footprint of the home. Thus, the second story would be 3.7 feet from that east property line and would not comply with the minimum required 4-foot east side yard setback. So based on this, the two requests before you today are: one, to alter or expand a non-conforming structure in a manner which does not conform to current ordinance requirements. The setback would be maintained and expanded vertically. And the second variance request before you is a variance to waive 0.3 feet of the minimum required 4-foot east side yard setback. So I believe those are the facts of the case. Here are just some images of the home as proposed. And I will stop my screen share so you can see if anyone has any questions for me.
Awesome. Any questions for Ms. Sherhart at this point? Ms. Zukin?
So there was no public comment whatsoever in writing or on the
We
phone?
received nothing. Nope.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right, not seeing any, I will go ahead and turn it over to the petitioners. The floor is yours. Who wants to go first? Mr. Gardner, you're muted currently.
Am I clear now?
Yes, sir. We can hear you.
Yes, my name is Doug Gardner. I'm with Gardner Builders. Ms. Sharon McAvoy, who's been a long resident of Royal Oak, wants to expand the home and put this addition on the top of it. And we thought everything was going along fine until it was checked out that we were 3.7 feet from the lot line. Miss McAvoy would love to have this improvement done to her home, and we're hoping that you people will allow us.
All right, thank you. Ms. McAvoy, anything that you would like to add, please? Yeah, we can't hear you, ma'am.
I don't think there's anything to add.
It looked like she was unmuted before, but still couldn't hear her, unfortunately.
Yeah, her mic might not be activated at the computer level.
Oh,
Can you hear me now?
Ah, there you are. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes.
No, I just would like to put an addition on. I have my niece and her family living with me, and we really need the room. And I don't want to move out of Royal Oak because the kids go to school here and they really like it. And thank you for consideration of this.
Excellent. Thank you, ma'am. All right, does anybody have any questions for the petitioner at this point? Mr. Gavin?
I saw that the report from administration said that there was a variance granted back in, or it was before the board back in 1998. Was Ms. McAvoy, were you the owner at the time for that, or was that a prior owner? You know?
It was me.
I was just curious. Thank you.
It was an addition for the back room.
Yeah, and what's interesting is that when she went before the board that was before we changed our lot coverage requirements for properties smaller than 6,000 square feet. So at that time, she needed a lot coverage variance, whereas now her property actually doesn't exceed the new requirement for lot coverage. So, fun fact.
Any other questions for the petitioner at this point? All right, Ms. Zukin.
Ms. McAvoy, did you discuss this with any of your neighbors?
The lady across the street and the lady next door to me. On the other side, someone just moved in. I don't know who that is, so I did not talk to her.
Did the ones you talked to have any objections?
No.
All right, any other questions for the petitioner? All right, not seeing any, I will close this portion of the hearing and bring it back to this side of the table. Mr. Olfak.
I'd like to move to grant the variances as requested.
We have a motion by Mr. Olfak, and I think I saw Mr. Curtis as the second. Mr. Olfak?
The hardship is their house is where it's at, so if they want to do anything to it, they're going to have to expand the non-conforming structure no matter what. So that's their hardship. It's not upon their own. That's just how zoning has changed over the years from when it originally was plotted for this. Same thing with that 0.3 foot setback, which is what, 4 inches? So between those two and not being able to, I have no problem. They're going straight up. I did have an issue if they were going off to the side and causing more of a problem, but they're going straight up. So I don't see a problem with granting them these variances.
Mr. Curtis, any follow-up?
Yeah, same thoughts about practical difficulty. It non-conforming, they're not expanding the problem at all. They're just trying to have a better house and enjoy Royal Oak all the more. So I'm for it.
Excellent. Any other Mr. Klatt?
I'm sure they could squeeze the second floor into me, but that would lead to structural issues, probably mechanical issues, and probably a awkward appearance from the street. So I'll be in support.
All right, anybody else? All right, not seeing anybody, I will go ahead and do the roll call vote. Mr. Curtis?
Yes.
Mr. Klatt?
Yes.
Mr. Ofac?
Aye.
Ms. George?
Yep.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
I vote yes. Ms. Zukin?
Yes.
Mr. Gavin?
Yes.
And Ms. Robinson.
Yes.
All right, so the variance passes unanimously. You folks are all set. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, have a good evening.
Good evening.
All right, so that moves us right along to the last thing that we have on our agenda, which is the 2020 annual report. I think we all have had a chance to read it and go through it. Are there any questions for staff regarding that report? All right, not seeing any. I think that moves us along to the mystery motion then.
I move to adjourn.
Support.
All right. All those in favor of adjourning, signify by saying aye.
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 Good night, everybody. Happy New Year.
Have a good
Good
night,
night.
everybody.
Welcome to the new members.
Indeed.
Yeah, nice having you.
Welcome.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Nice seeing everybody.
Take care now.